And we're looking at Psalms chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "Why do the Gentiles rage and the peoples meditate emptiness? The sovereigns, the kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers take counsel together against YaHuWshua and against his Messiah, his Mashiach, his anointed one, and say, let us tear apart their bonds and throw away their ropes from us. He who is sitting in the heavens laughs. YaHuWshua mocks at them. Then he speaks to them in his wrath and troubles them in his rage, saying, but I have set my king, my sovereign, on Mount Zion, my set-apart mountain. I inscribe for a law, the word Torah there in the Hebraic language. YaHuWshua has said to me, you are my son. Today I have brought you forth. This is what we were just reading from the book of Hebraic. He was quoting from the Psalms chapter 2. He says, today I have brought you forth. Ask of me, and I make the Gentiles your inheritance, and the ends of the earth your possession. Break them with a rod of iron. Dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. But now be wise, O kings. This is prophetic for these last days. Be wise, O you kings. Be instructed, O you rulers of the earth. Serve YaHuWshua with fear. How will we serve YaHuWshua with fear? The scriptures tell us, serve YaHuWshua with fear and rejoice with trembling. Verse 12. Kiss the Son. That's how we're going to serve YaHuWshua with fear. We're going to kiss his Son, lest he be enraged and you perish in the way. For soon his wrath is to be kindled. Whose wrath? The wrath of the Lamb, the wrath of the Son. Blessed are all those taking refuge in him. Taking refuge in who? Taking refuge in the Son of YaHuWshua. It says in this chapter, we read about the Mashiach, that the Mashiach is the Son, that he is the King who sits on Mount Zion, and that we are supposed to honor the Son, kiss the Son, lest his rage be kindled but a little. Okay, so Scripture tells us in the Old Testament that the Son is the Mashiach, and the Mashiach is the King. All right, keep that in mind, all right? Because anyone who is telling you that the Old Testament does not teach this, they're unlearned and unstable in the Scriptures. Genesis 49 verse 3 says this about a son, okay? About this, specifically about the firstborn. And we know that YaHuWshua is the only brought forth son. He is the firstborn, but he is the only brought forth son of YaHuWshua. Come explicitly right from YaHuWshua, because YaHuWshua existed in YaHuWshua in the very beginning. Genesis 49 verse 3, this is Yisrael speaking to his firstborn. He says, Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power. And this is prophetic of YaHuWshua the Son. He is the first sign of YaHuWsh's strength. He is excelling in honor, excelling in power. Okay? Now, the scriptures also tell us this in another place, that a firstborn is the first sign of his father's strength. In Deuteronomy 21 verse 17, we have a ruling in the scenario of ancient Yisrael, that a man had two wives, one that he loved more than the other. If his firstborn came from the one that wasn't loved as much, he still had to honor that firstborn son as the firstborn. This is what it says in Deuteronomy 21 verse 17. He must acknowledge the son of his unloved wife as the firstborn, regardless, as I was saying, by giving him a double share of all that he has. That son is the first sign of his father's strength. The right of the firstborn belongs to him. So here we see it again, that the firstborn is a sign of his father's strength. But it also says that he must receive a double share. Now, how did they do this in ancient Yisrael? How is it possible to give to your son double of what you have? This is how you would do it. Abraham and all the patriarchs did it in this manner. They would give to their son their physical inheritance. But as their days were about to end, their father would give to them a prophecy, if you will. It was an oath, a promise of something that had not yet taken place, something that had not been seen, but they told their son it would happen in the latter times, that it would happen in their lifetime. And it was a promise. It was an oath. So there was the physical inheritance, but then there was an oath, and that's the double share that's been given. And surely the Father YaHuWshua has given a great oath to his son YaHuWshua. Let's go back to the book of Hebrews. Go back to the book of Hebrews, right where we left off. And Hebrews chapter 5. Hebrews chapter 5. Alright, we're going to read that verse one more time. It says in verse 5, so also the Messiah did not extol himself, he did not force himself to become high priest, but it was he who said to him, you are my son, today I brought you forth. And we looked at that prophecy. But in verse 6 it says this, as he also says in another place, you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. Now Melchizedek, that is in scripture, actually means Melchizedek, which means king or messenger of righteousness. And what is very interesting about this is a promise that's given to the Son. However, this man Melchizedek, as he has been called, in scripture is not talked about very much at all. Matter of fact, in the Torah, the first 5 books of Moshe, in Genesis, if we'll turn there to Genesis chapter 14, verse 18. Genesis chapter 14 and verse 18. This is the only time you see this character, Melchizedek, as he has been called, mentioned in the entire Torah, and he's only mentioned in the Old Testament one other time, okay? So we're going to read this, Genesis 14:18, and Melchizedek, as it says. Now in Hebrew, the Abraya language, it actually says Melchizedek, and there's 2 words there, Melchizedek and Zadik, okay? So it's not exactly a name, it's actually 2 words, which means king of righteousness. And then it says, and Melchizedek, king of Salem, or sovereign of Shalom. All right, this word means king of peace. So actually in the Abraya, what you see is, instead of seeing a name like Melchizedek, you see Melchizedek, Malach Shalom. So really he's saying this is the king and messenger of righteousness, and he is a king and messenger of Shalom, of peace. All right, and it says, now he brought out bread and wine. Now in the Abraya, it actually indicates that he brought it forth, that he brought forth bread and wine. All right, and it's very interesting. He brought this forth to Abraham. Now Abraham is being shown by the king and priest Melchizedek, who is the king of righteousness, the king of Shalom. He is being shown the sign of the covenant of YaHuWshua. Remember, YaHuWshua brought forth the bread and the wine, and he broke the bread and gave it to his disciples. He said, this is the bread of the new covenant, my broken body. And then he passed around the wine and he said, this is the blood of the covenant that I have shed for you. All right, so they drunk the wine and they ate the bread, and Abraham was presented these gifts by the Melchizedek. All right, it's very important to see the shadow picture that is already being in place here. And it says, now he was a priest to the Most High El, or El Elyon, which means the highest power, that Yahuwah is the highest power. And he blessed him and said, blessed be Abram of the Most High El, possessor of the heavens and earth, and blessed be the Most High El, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And he gave him 1/10 of all. Abraham tithed unto Melchizedek. All right, and there's nothing else mentioned about this man. We don't know where he came from. It doesn't tell us his genealogy. It doesn't tell us anything about him at all. But what it is pointing to is that Abraham, the man who carried the promises of the Most High, who is the greatest man of his time, as he was walking the earth, he saw one who was greater than he, who had no genealogy, we know nothing about, that he was the king of righteousness, the king of Shalom, and he was a king priest. Okay, and Abraham saw this and he tithed to this man, and this man had given him the articles of a covenant, the bread and the wine. All right, it's very symbolic of pointing to something greater than Abraham himself.